Imgesu. How are you?
I'm great. How about yourself,
Good.
Enzo?
Good. So this is you are now on the episode 2 of the Block Changes podcast. We have Imgesu Cetin. Did I say that right? I hope so.
Imgesu, but yes.
Say it again.
Imgesu.
Imgesu. I've been saying Imgesu probably since I met you like 5 years ago, and you never corrected me. That's not good. You need to correct people. Just kidding. But we're here with our founder and CEO of GenieAI. Used to be called DeFi Trends. We'll talk more about that. So, Imgesu, ever since we actually met, I know that we talked about a bunch of different things that were happening out there in the marketplace. So, what I think we all want to know about is what are you doing? How do you see yourself? And just tell us a little bit about your personal background and what made you become a startup entrepreneur. I know that you worked at Tesla as a data scientist, and it's like, that's a big jump going from the corporate enterprise like world of Tesla
And
to
develop. Yeah.
to a startup.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, my background is a very interesting background, but I've always wanted to be a founder, specifically when I was in grad school. So I went to school at the supercomputer called Halijoul supercomputer at UCSD. And it was a data science program, essentially very heavy on modeling, a lot of NLP courses. And after I left, I worked at the Deep Decarbonization Initiative, and it was funded by Tesla. And there I was an AI researcher, pretty much building models, writing research reports, optimizing charging. And after that, I actually got the honor of working in the United Nations Innovation Lab. It was their data analytics center, and essentially stakeholders like Germany and Norway were funding our innovation lab to build products for them, big data products. And I was one of the first hires to build a very big project there to use big data. So at the time, Twitter data. So we were essentially connecting to Twitter's API. At the time, it was not as expensive as it is now that Elon has taken over. I heard it's very expensive now, but essentially we were connecting to that API and using geolocation and keyword search to identify where everyone is moving in real time. And another subset of that was looking where migration was happening in real time around the world. And based on academia, it was only done on country levels when I started my career there. And we ended up in a year and a half creating from idea to production an application where policymakers, German policymakers, and anyone else in the United Nations migration department could use this product to identify where people and migrants were moving in real time by lateral migration based on keyword search, as well as use that as an additive to a predictive model. So essentially you have a model, and we would add that to increase accuracy. And so we built that. That was my first time leading a project. We had a bunch of consultants. I hired my own team. And for me, that was a startup experience, but more, I would say, supervised, since there's funding and support of any kind. After that, I joined the Tribe AI group, and it is a exclusive AI member club, I would say, in New York City, where they give you a coding exam to get you in their member club. And essentially, if there's any big projects that they want to hire out AI experts or machine learning experts, they pretty much post in our group. And with that, I did a couple projects, one in a hedge fund where I was supervising their alternative data strategy. So pretty much they wanted to buy alternative data, and I set up their centralized database. And then I worked there a little bit on parsing their structured database, which is pretty much the problem that Genie is solving, right? You get a request from the team, oh, can I understand, or can I get the top 10, let's just say in this example with crypto, what are the top 10 blockchains by TVL? And so essentially this is just a query, and I would write these SQL queries and I would just be pinged over and over again. And this was essentially the thought and idea of what I wanted to do, which was democratize access into data. And so me, my co-founder, we set out to democratize access into data, and I was working in finance. Right before that, my co-founder was just exited out of a company that was called Bospor, and they were doing commodity trading for soil and seed and oil. And essentially he was bringing it on the blockchain as well. And so we wanted to get into the blockchain space with DeFi trends. Essentially, we were indexing the blockchain, doing alternative data, so scraping GitHub for a proxy of development. That could be contributors, that could be code commits, that could be technological stack that the team built. The team, right? You can get all of this metadata directly from GitHub. And so we were putting all of that in a centralized database, and we were using Postgres at the time. And then we were selling it. We did have a very basic consumer application, but most of our bread and butter was selling this dedicated Postgres database to hedge funds so they could have more data on the crypto industry, I would say, because you could subset into anything, layer ones, layer twos. You could look at payment rails, whatever you'd like from the data, and it would be supplementary data. And a lot of traditional long short hedge funds use alternative data and spend so much money on that. And so while we had a very big client, we realized that we built Genie on top of it. Genie is essentially a generative AI that can translate your question, so natural language, into an SQL query. So essentially is the intermediary between you and your database. And this helps teams in funds, in companies that are non-technical but do need to access their internal data. That could be the alternative data side. It can be understanding your churn metrics, seeing your user growth over time. And so essentially we built our own model that would sit on top of our Postgres database and would allow anyone, when we do a demo or sell the product, to query out that data very easily. And as you know, we've demoed the product to you in our earlier iterations. And so when, you wanted to understand the data stream, and when you don't know the query by heart, you would have to type in the SQL. Now, with the revolution of generative AI, and it's not that it just happened now, neural nets have been around, but it was the inflection point because enterprises and companies and teams and individuals were ready to really use generative AI in their workplace. And so, we did it for our first client. We plugged in a generative AI model on top of the Postgres. They loved it. Essentially, their big value prop was allowing them, like their sales and marketing teams, to be able to look at Web3 data, alternative data, like I said, the GitHub analytics, the social sentiment, the blockchain data, all in one database to the non-technical team members so they can make decisions, marketing decisions, sales decisions. If you know that a lot of the Web3, I'm giving a lot of examples of Web3 here, a lot of developers are building using USDC contracts. You want to spend more time on USDC contracts in your stack, right? So it kind of informs the sales, the marketing, the funds, where the market is moving. So after our success, yeah, please go ahead.
No, so just to kind of take a step back on, so from a real simple approach, you're basically taking the concept of doing a query on a data set, or maybe even multiple data sets. I mean, does this, and then just, and having the code is just kind of generated by the AI,
yes,
but it's being actually generated based on someone just using natural language, saying, like if I went to my actual kind of database, actually like kind of data scientist, and said, I want to see this data set, then that's what this is doing. Is it working across multiple data sets? Because I would think that most people that want to utilize this are saying, well, can I see data sets that look at this data, and this data, and pull it together based on some type of criteria?
Definitely. So let me explain for what we support at the moment. So we work with structured databases. So structured databases, for example, are Postgres, MySQL, IBM DB2, the
Right.
Oracle structured database. And then we also support warehouses. So a lot of large enterprises use Snowflake and Databricks, and we've built connectors to all SQL supported warehouses as well. And so warehouses are used for companies or funds or organizations that have many data streams. It could be your product data, it could be your alternative data that you're buying through a stream, it could be your HubSpot being piped in, it could be your Snowplow, your events data, it could be any data being piped into the warehouse. And so Genie can sit on top of any database and warehouse and multiple databases at the same time. So essentially, when we onboard a company, you just paste in your database URL. We connect to your database, and you can add up to 20 different databases. And this is very important, especially when you go into larger enterprises that maybe the fraud division is using a Snowflake and one division is using a Postgres, but you'd like to ask a question to all the databases at the same time. So we allow for all databases to be configured at the same time, which solves a very big problem.
How do you deal with, I mean, I think one of the things that the end user would want to see is like the latency to actually put together some of this. Is it that like I ask a question, it just generates to the actual SQL call or the queries and then goes out and finds the actual information? And then how long does it take to come back? It depends on size, correct?
So the complexity of the query does it does cause variable time to get the query. However, on average, the most complex query, let's just say it's doing a multi-table join of different databases, is not more than 60 seconds. So the longest query is 60 seconds. Yeah, so it's not a long time. But the latency of your query is based on your database. Sorry?
How long would it take for a human to potentially, like in some of these use cases, are you comparing how long it would take a business analyst working for you to
Definitely. Great analytics. And I love to give this example of Marqeta. I did a pitch to Marqeta, and their product managers are semi-technical. They kind of understand Snowflake. They know how to write SQL, but let's just say they're not very technical. They get a ping from their stakeholder, and it's Uber. And Uber says, hey, I'd like to know the names and email addresses of all my Uber employees that have activated their Marqeta debit card. And to get this answer for this inquiry, you would have to go into the database because it's an ad hoc request. There's no stagnant dashboard like your Looker table, your Tableau that could answer this question, right? You would have to go into this table for that product manager to fulfill this request that they're getting paid $300K a year, right? It's taking on average 6 to 7 hours for them to first ask the developers, what's the name of this table? And this is actually where it gets really complicated. There are no standards of data mapping or like data dictionaries.
Right.
And so
like every file name is different. Every database name is different. Everything's different.
But
that's a mess.
So good. You don't have to, when you're using Genie, you don't have to select the table you want to write a query about. We're using a system called retrieval augmentation generation, and it's our secret sauce that essentially goes through a vector search to find the relevant table names and field name of the question that you asked. And so this allows for quicker processing time, as well as it's quicker for our system to find the relevant table than it is of product manager asking around every developer, hey, what was the name of the table where Uber's name and email address that activated the debit card are, right? But let's just say, let's give an example that their table schema is very messy, right? That they didn't write the name Uber name, email, activation. So essentially we have fine tuning on Genie. So you can, after we onboard you, you can say, oh, well, example of TVL. TVL is abbreviated for total value locked, right? But you can go into Genie and say TVL means total value locked. So every time you say, I want to know the top 10 assets that have the highest TVL, it will know that TVL or total value lock are the same thing. So it does internal mapping for you. And so that's like use cases that we've kind of developed.
So it's creating a structure around the database that even if there's no structure there. So it's like cleaning the data.
Yes.
Or it's cleaning the kind of taxonomy of that data set, and then it stays that way.
Exactly. So it's creating an ontology, and you can enhance the semantic layer by giving context to what that table means or what that field means, right? If you have a very well-defined schema and everything is well organized and written, you're going to use Genie off the bat without even enhancing or giving context, right? With all of the data that we've uploaded, our own data, we used to sell alternative data, we had no problem. That's what we were using. But when we've been working with a lot of earlier stage companies and just different companies that maybe when they first started the company, they really didn't have any context of how they should structure their database. And we've been consulting and helping them along the line. But the generative AI will work as well as how well your data is. And that's why we build.
Garbage. I mean, I think we should talked about this the other day. And everyone's like, well, freaking out about the Genie, I'm sorry, the kind of Gemini,
Yeah.
AI issues with George Washington isn't white and whatever. And to me, I'm like, it's just garbage in, garbage out. It's like computer science 101. And you're saying the same thing, right? I mean, if you train the AI if you train a person, an AI, set up a database that way, I mean, it's going to give you what you've asked for, right? At the end of the day, I mean, it can think a little bit outside the box, but it's not inventing things really. I mean, it's kind of hallucinating a little bit. But now, do you have any issue around this issue of data coming back and it's kind of hallucinating on the data, or no?
Yeah. So I would say more language-based generation like SQL, it is less likely to hallucinate versus, let's just say, give me a recipe for a lemon cake and it tells you to put rocks inside of it, right? Since it's still it's a structured language, the likelihood of it giving hallucinations are much less. But just in case, we have put measures, and there's a lot of companies that are working on that right now. There's Arthur and etc. new companies popping out. However, the way we approach this problem is to create a level of reliability. And so we have a workflow. Once you or any of your team members have asked a query on Genie, they all get aggregated and logged in an editor section of Genie, where you can see the SQL that was generated, the action and the logic behind the AI generated query, the table it chose, why it filtered what, and you have a written explanation. If there is anything wrong, you can go in and edit and approve that query into a golden record saying, let's just say you're the head of data. And there's lots of companies where I've also done that. I was the only head of data engineering, head of database, right? There's lots of companies that don't have enough.
Well, actually, data scientists are expensive. So to get one actual data scientist it's expensive. To get two is twice as expensive. You want to try to leverage the one that you have, and yes, it does get a little bit. Yeah, I mean, but isn't that the reason why you could just spin up? I mean, if you can spin up a bunch of AI agents that are similar to a data scientist in that role, doesn't it allow you to just do multiple, more work and so on, and with less people at the end of the day?
It's exactly. So that's why our value prop is for companies like that. Let's just say they have a small team, and you still want. That's why I'm saying there needs to be still governance, meaning that one data scientist can now pretty much. We had this actually conversation with this company, and it was amazing to hear the pain points. Hey, I'm the only data engineer, data scientist, data analyst, and everyone is pinging me. But I'd rather just monitor that the queries that they're seeing are correct. So that's why we're going back to the editor section, seeing that SQL is correct. It's blue tick. You can think of it like Twitter. Oh, this is approved. Once it's approved, you can rerun it. You know that is reliability. And thus, since there is a reinforcement with human feedback layer on top of it. So once you approve it, you're saying that was a correct query, and then it continuously improves. The model continuously improves by approving it. So one data scientist, analyst, data engineer in a team now can work as a 20-person team, and these non-technical, team members that need to access the data have autonomy to do so, but are still governed by, the head of data.
So with your firm, I know that you kind of, you're not doing any kind of retail product really anymore. in the institutional kind of enterprise world, it sounds like you have to first like consult a little bit, get them set up, and then once that's set up, then you have, you can really extract data sets from actually kind of multiple places, both in-house and out-house. But are you like, what's the goal as far as scaling the company? Are you looking to have, is it kind of like Snowflake where you go in and you're selling like a SaaS product that it gets embedded into the whole ecosystem, and then you have some type of consulting layer? I mean, a lot of companies do this. Salesforce does. I mean, there's a lot of companies that will have to do both. Like they have to go in and set you up, and then they have to, and then you're basically running it, but it's slightly customized for your data set. Is there ever a place where someone could just say, I want to use this system, I could just attach my databases online and just run it? Or do you have to always go through the consulting route?
No, so we actually recently launched our self-serve product. Actually, we did a product hunt launch. We were second place. We were very excited. First place was a Chinese AI company, so we were kind of sad that we were number one. But we got a lot. Yeah, we were second place. Amazing, really, to get in the top.
I'm sorry, which hackathon? I mean, which event?
Product Hunt. So Product Hunt is a very well-known product launching, kind of like a launch pad, and you can get your clients and the community vote. And we had, I think, like 3,000 upvotes, and a lot of our clients that were already using our self-serve product, or the ones that were using our white label product, already upvoted us, gave a lot of feedback. So it was great. But that was when we launched to the public our self-serve product. Self-serve meaning you go in, you create an account, you put your credit card information, and you pay for kind of like a 100 to 200 queries. So each query means one question, one data question. So you have a limit of 100 questions for $500 a month, which is a quarter of what a data analyst costs, right? So it's still very cost efficient. And the reason why we priced it that way is there's compute cost, of course. And actually, to say we're an NVIDIA partner, we've just made NVIDIA Inception program, so we have a lot of free compute.
What is that program about?
Sorry?
What is the actual program about? The NVIDIA Inception, program? Kind of explain it to us.
Yeah, so the NVIDIA Inception program, they choose a handful of selected AI companies that they think are going to be great, and they support them on their journey, essentially with VC network, upskilling the team, free GPU credits, and essentially to pitch at their conferences. We just got accepted last week, and actually next week there's a huge NVIDIA conference in San Jose happening. And for next year, since we got accepted late, we'll be able to pitch at the NVIDIA conference our product. It's a great way. It's a great go-to-market, and we are an official partner with them. Definitely helps with getting new clients.
I mean, someone was actually, I heard 2 quotes about them being the most important company in the world, which is interesting, right? So if you're being actually, accelerated almost, not really incubated, but accelerated by using that program, it sounds like they probably have a lot of enterprise customers that might be interested in this type of product.
Definitely. It's a great go-to-market.
Yeah.
And
is there any issue with what type of database you attach, like when you want to use the self-serve?
Yeah,
product?
so I was kind of explaining the self-serve. So it's a Stripe integration, super easy to use for smaller teams that don't want to pay for the white glove solution that we already have. And so you pay for the subscription, and then you just put your database URL, which is every database has a unique database URL. You paste it, and you can view all of your tables inside your database. You could add up, like I said, 20 databases at the same time. You select a schema. You can see your database directly on Genie. And if you want to, like I said, give context about your table or your field, you can do it directly there. We also have guardrails. So our slogan is enterprise ready, secure generative AI for data, right? Secure. And, we have the ex-CTO, McAfee, the head of cybersecurity of Bank of America, as one of our head of securities and one of our investors and advisors, who really informed us while building this product to make a very secure product. So we have guardrails, we have fine-grained permission controls. So once you're onboarded, you can go add your team member and say, oh, this team member should only have access to these 3 tables, or Megan, the head of investment relations, should only look at revenue. Once you configure this in the permission controls, you can go in and say, okay, I don't want anyone to see the last names of my customers, right?
Right.
This is very important, especially in the data world, to, allow for your team to be able to query it. And this is for self-serve. For self-serve, we don't do any self-hosted. So our big 95% of our clients use Genie in a self-hosted manner, meaning they want it to be deployed on a virtual private cloud, the cloud of their choosing. We built our product on a Kubernetes Helm chart, so it can be deployed on any cloud infrastructure. And I would say mostly it's been TCP. But essentially, it's more an air-gapped solution, semi-air-gapped solution, meaning that no data goes in or out of Genie when you self-host on a virtual private cloud. And I'm pressing on the 95% because data privacy is such a concern, right? We don't want any data leakage, and
you're actually taking their internal data sets, and then you're exposing them through this channel. So I can understand that, but that's great. I mean, I think that once you go into, and then of course there are all the policies and rules with GDPR, as well as HIPAA, whatever they're doing it for, right? And then they also have to worry about the licensing of the, if they're buying kind of financial data, they really can't be sharing it outside. So yeah, there's a bunch of things that people have.
Issue with OpenAI, right? OpenAI, a lot of big companies.
No copyright problem.
Yeah, they weren't comfortable allowing OpenAI to access their internal proprietary data. However, let's just be frank, if they self-hosted, you can deploy you can deploy a language model on a on-prem or on a virtual private cloud, which, then it's localized, right? So then you're not really having anything leave this container. And so
I think this is important. But I think what you're saying is really important, because what people don't realize is that if they're uploading all of their data sets into OpenAI, that they're basically, exposing that to the rest of the OpenAI customer base, aren't they?
Not to the customer base, but it's being trained on it. And I'm not sure, because since I've been watching Sam Altman's demo day that happened in San Francisco now, I think 6 months ago, I don't remember, February, I think. He, very much emphasized the security. OpenAI is built with security in mind. We have not used any customer data to extensively fine-tune our language model. They are definitely using it for reinforcement learning. So, when you see that thumbs up or thumbs down when you're using ChatGPT, that's their reinforcement learning with human feedback loop that they do, right? You're saying, oh, that was the worst output I've ever seen. I didn't ask I don't want to bake a chocolate cake. I asked you for a carrot cake, right? So that's like a hallucination. And they're using reinforcement learning. However, they are emphasizing that the training data, so you saying giving them context or writing a question, that they're not using that to fine tune even more, because also it's an issue, is that truth? But then we're going in a loophole of what is truth, right? So I don't want to get into that loophole, but it's not training. They say
it's not that she kind of show. We don't talk about the conspiracy theories that are out there, even though I kind of believe in about half of them. So
training is hard topic, right? If you're training a model from Wikipedia, it's difficult to understand what it is.
Well, so actually, where do you think this is all going to go for you and for the company in the next, let's say, 6 months to a year, and then even 5 years? What do you think is? What do you if you could look at the 5-year plan and look back, what does it look like?
Definitely. And this is a great question, because I used to teach a futurism class at UCSD. So I would say that I'm very into.
He was an engineer there. So yeah, he studied engineering and then got his master's there too. It's a great school.
Yeah, it's definitely so good. But my thoughts in general, I like to speak for more my niche. So generative AI for, let's just say, internal data purposes. And that can include actually PDF files as well, unstructured and structured data. I think we're moving towards a future where smaller teams can achieve more, right? Not big teams of 1,000 people teams creating the output of 1,000. Now, let's just say 20 people teams can achieve the amount of 100-person, given that now they have all of these tool sets with AI, right? I want to parse all of our internal data. I can be the data analyst on the team. I'm not saying completely replacing the key specialist on the team, but having a ability to actually know more with less, right? That's what I think the advantageous part of generative AI. It can do the heavy lifting or the annoying part, right? I've been a data analyst. I really didn't like writing queries because it's pretty much copy pasting and changing the names of the tables and fields. And now the teams can do it themselves. And so you can do more with less. And we're going to just be producing extreme amount of output. That's what I think it's moving towards. And the more generative AI for data that I'd like to mention. So I got asked a question, where do I think my company will be in 10 years? It's a very hard question, right? You don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. But I really
10
think
years is forever.
10 years is forever. But I think that, you know how we're on this podcast, we can have Genie on this call with an avatar who's actually looking like a data analyst. And you say, actually, what was our revenue numbers for last year? And it will be like, yes, Imgesu, let me go fetch that for you. And it's voice to data. So I think that that's going to be, it might be very novel as well, but the way we're moving is, you might be a founder, creative, and you employ a whole team of just AI avatars. One's the data analyst, one is the marketer.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this. I was like, I wonder if we could create a company that, like, how I'm into the concept of a CFA, of a chartered kind of financial analyst, and creating an AI version of that. And I'm like, what if you could just create a team of researchers that was only AIs, like AI agents working on research, documents, and just, and you could have 1,000. I mean, you could have 20,000, right? So, I mean, think about that for a second. If you do that, you could literally have research documents on everything in the world.
100%. The scary part is that I don't think that's the 10-year. I think that's coming very, very soon. I have a lot of friends in San Francisco working on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a couple of firms that have started doing some stuff like that. We started working on one where we have investor relations officers and CFOs are training the AI investor relations officers so that it doesn't, because if you mess up on a public company, you can cause a lot of damage. Obviously you can't hallucinate, but that's where I think, why not? In fact, it's actually going to do a better job, because the thing about a disclosure about a public company, let's say, is that if you disclose it incorrectly because you don't know the number, that's not good, right? Whereas the AI will never do that, or it shouldn't ever do that.
Shouldn't. That's the other part that I'm seeing is, though, a lot of my professors, when we're going into discussions of what our true thoughts about like OpenAI are, but it's no better than an intern. Where it gets better is when you do like something like Genie, these niche models that are specified for a specific task only. For example, generating SQL, parsing data, right? That is its goal. That is its only mission, which is also the benefit is it's a smaller model, right? We're using a 7 billion parameter model which is reducing compute cost,
Right.
less hallucinations. It's just fit for that task specific. I don't think, and this is a lot of big arguments happening in the AI spaces, the cons of having these very large models, which in the beginning was like the larger the better, which requires more compute cost, right? More resources. Whereas I and more of these, I guess, modest researchers believe that actually smaller models will be better for your task, humanity, compute cost, just you can just continuously name it. And maybe these niche models will just be specialized in their niche things, just like specialized, team members that are specializing in data analytics, or it could be marketing, etc. Right? We don't need one model that can do everything correctly.
So could someone create like a series of different like AI agents that can pull data and so on, but they can also do tasks? So I have a project manager AI, I have a marketing manager AI, they're using the queries, they're pulling the data sets, and then they're actually creating action items. If you're the marketing AI agent, maybe you're actually taking in the information sets from certain kind of parameters, and then you're publishing that on social media.
Yeah, so what it is that's pretty much the multi-agent LLM. So we're actually working on a multi-agent LLM now. And not to say that, look, I've tried so many products that, advertise that it's a multi-agent LLM. Let's just say, I want you to do X, Y, and Z, but it gets stuck at X, and then it doesn't end up doing Y because it's multiple.
It's not really there yet.
So for us, let me give you an example of what we're doing. So we have two different systems. One, let's just say, is fetching the table, one system writing the SQL, one executing, and it executes against it. And then we get a JSON output. Then that JSON output is fit into a data visualization. And essentially we want that then to use that JSON output, which is like the results, like what was my churn based on last month. Oh, our churn is up 3%. Let's just say a random thing. Then if you have as you know from financial modeling or any kind of finance, if you use time series, like your previous 10 months churn, you can, at some capacity with not such a high accuracy, look at your probability of your churn next month, right? Since you have that historic data. And so the second agent would then use that data that is just parsed to then be like, okay, let me just plug this into a profit, like a Facebook profit financial model, like, which is just a time series, a forecast. And then like your churn is predicted to be up 5% based on your historic year of performance. And so this is, essentially, and I think that will be the game changer of Genie. And actually, that's what I think the next 3 years will look like for us, because it's incredible technology. Imagine you're like, I want to know my churn. Actually, just predict it for me. Great. I've just finished a report in 2 minutes. Versus,
would it be able to potentially also give you insights as to how to like let's say churn's a problem, and you're like, well, here's the actual data set on the churn, but here are some of the action. Here are some of the activities that can help you reduce that churn if you did this, and this. I mean, wouldn't that be interesting?
That I'm maybe to some degree, you could also even use like more machine learning techniques to look at like outlier analysis. You could do clustering to look at like, oh, this is an anomaly. Maybe it's because of XYZ. I don't think it would directly say that you should fix this, because it is a recommendation. You could build a recommendation. You can do anything, right?
Yeah.
You can do anything. The problem is the accuracy, and especially when you're talking about data, it is a bigger problem to get a recipe about chocolate cake when you said carrot cake. But if you say that you're churned and it recommended something completely not what you wanted, you're going to have a very unhappy stakeholder. So we're trying to have a fine line of accuracy, and that's why, selling, as you know, from my finance days, I was trying to sell models to hedge funds, and I realized it's horrible because everyone wants their own model. Accuracy is a problem. So definitely gets into the recommendations, predictions are always getting into the territory of risk. It's quite risky.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is that people will, if it's working, they won't say anything and they'll just keep paying. But if it doesn't work one time, you're like, well, it doesn't work, and you're like, no, just little instance may not work.
Yeah.
The expectations of, I was reading the I think it was just the exponential book, and like the expectations of humans when they interact with computers now is just so like over the top. Like they expected instantaneous, like super efficient, always correct. And it's like, well, that's not really the way computers work. So it's kind of like it's kind of interesting. So all right. So tell me more about when you think about what you want to do as like an entrepreneur. I know you don't have much of I know you have somewhat of a personal life, but I know you work a lot. We know that. But like how are you dealing with the stress, or just dealing with like being an entrepreneur? I mean, like, what would you say to other folks that are data scientists, or other folks that want to be entrepreneurs, or other women that want to be entrepreneurs, you know, what would you have done? Like, what would you like to do to, as you start to grow the company, to make it more, efficient for yourself, as well as, live your life, just enjoy yourself too.
Definitely. I'd like to quote Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA. And they asked him, if you could go back, would you do this? He was like, no. I did not anticipate that this would be such a difficult journey. Look, I think being an entrepreneur is incredible, but for people who enjoy risk and uncertainty, this job comes with a lot of very high highs and very low lows, a lot of things you cannot expect for. Plans that you make don't always turn out the way you expect it to. So you need to have a very high risk appetite. And it might not be for everyone, but if you can handle stress, are innovative, and can take continuous iterating. So I think your success is about how quickly you adapt, and the rate of change, the rate of learning. Like, you need to learn at such fast iterations. Like, if I made a mistake last month, okay, this month I've learned from that mistake. I don't make it again. I don't even recognize myself 3 years ago, but definitely it's an incredible journey with benefits. I get to build an incredible team, and I wouldn't be here without them. And personal life, I definitely am very active person. So I kite surf, I produce music. I haven't produced for a while, to be quite honest.
We have to listen to that. I'm surprised. Yeah, I should have had you actually bring on a track or something. So
yeah,
so
I
produce part of that. You know what I'll do is, for the end of it, I'll actually send me a track, and I'll have it fade out to that track so that people can hear what the music's like.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
The mind of the creative is excellent. So I think that this job, you need a lot of EQ, which is very important. A lot of people don't speak about that, because imagine, I went to a very technical school. I was surrounded with a lot of intelligent technical colleagues. However, they all ended up, working at Facebook, Google, Meta, Tesla, and it takes a lot more than just technical experience. It's management, managing expectations, but being enthusiastic about what you do, that a lot of people want to, be with you, hang out with you. And yeah, that's why I do it. I enjoy it. But I also love
intelligence is important in life. So yeah, I mean, and it's like I always look at it this way, which is, like, I've worked in large corporations too. I've consulted a lot of companies of large size, and I'm always like, I just like being able to do the innovation thing. I'm like a bit of this kind of innovation junkie. I call myself like an innovation junkie. I always love the next thing, and it's like, and it excites you, right? I mean, some people don't like that. They just want to, like steady Eddie, do a lot of the same things, which is cool, and they want to become really efficient at it. And I think that's great. But I'm like you. I'm like, what's the next thing that's going to happen, and can I see around the corner and be a part of it?
Definitely, but even for a business, right? The concept of the innovator's dilemma, when you create a new technology that has not been really done before, how do you even create a business model for it? SaaS, let's just say a subscription-based service, has always been the way to scale a company. However, when I was thinking about a product like mine that hasn't really been out, I was like, oh, maybe I'll do pay-as-you-go subscription-based model, because it's an innovator's dilemma. It's not been out. There's no solution like that. So you're just constantly iterating and seeing what.
Well, you're actually solving a problem that people don't know if they really have. Like, some of this stuff in the AI world is kind of like an efficiency opportunity. So we're kind of solving, but that's where it's starting. Like, to me, the open AI is kind of like the web 1.0. It was kind of novel to have a website. That's it. Just have a website. back in the 90s, right? So this is the same concept. It's kind of like this novel idea to have, and then people started doing different things with it. And I think it's going to become more narrow focused now, as you're doing too, because if you really want to make it useful and get away from just it being interesting, you have to actually put some type of, ring fencing around it so that you can really execute. So what is your next big launch? Or are you working? I know that. So you just launched. So you launched the self-service, and you have the enterprise.
So there's 3 different models we use. We have the self-serve for smaller companies, and that was actually a way we wanted to give back to the startup community. And I have a lot of founder friends that are doing founder-led analytics, and they're very untechnical, don't even know what their database is. And we gave it to them to use the pay-as-you-go, and that was the whole way I wanted to get them on, help them out. And they actually created, I have a company that built their Series A deck using Genie. They wrote, what is my user growth month over month? And they got a chart and they put it in the deck. So it's incredible to see that happening. We have a white glove onboarding for 1,000 queries on our cloud infrastructure, meaning you can just use Genie. You have a login. We customize permission controls. We add your databases for you. We enhance it ourselves. So it's white glove. And then we have an enterprise version. And this is where we deploy Genie. So Genie's LLM, Genie's software, we containerize it and deploy it onto your cloud of choice in a private virtual cloud. And then essentially, we create a Slack connect, check in. And if you have any concerns where they're pretty much building out anything that you need, it could be that you want to add documents, you want to add Excel. So we just add it for them. And that's our custom package that we do.
That sounds awesome. So you're actually servicing everyone from the founder to the large enterprise, and you're kind of leveraging your actual background and all the data scientists, the futurists, an understanding of where you think it's going, and you're starting to prepare companies really for the next generation, for the future of how their companies may operate or will operate.
I actually, next week, I have a call with this drug discovery company, 61,000 employees, and they reached out saying we really need to use AI on our data. We have all these scientific research, we have these structured data, and we have all these employees. And it's not that I'm saying that they want to lay off their teams, but they want to create operational efficiency. And I think the way we're moving is a lot of companies. That's why I am a big fan of Sam Altman, because when I was in graduate school for data science, we were studying neural nets, NLP, but there was no sign of such adoption in enterprises, right? They were maybe doing like classification models. Maybe they were using it for prediction lightly, but they were definitely not using generative AI to create content or use it on their data, right? So Sam Altman was the evangelist.
I think what companies are going to actually discover is not the cost-cutting opportunities, but the fact that they can expand into other areas that are similar or adjacent to what they currently do, and without hiring a whole new group of people, by just expanding maybe by 10% versus 100 by 20% or 30% on the employment side, but they'll have a whole other business line. I think that's what, because once people start seeing what the results are, they're going to say to themselves, oh, we could use this for this, and this, and this. And I think that's where you're going to see a lot of information. I think that the cost cutting stuff will happen, but I don't think people will. I think the confidence level isn't there yet, right?
Definitely.
It sounds like, right?
Like I said, we're not in the market to take anyone's job, and I would actually say this is a co-pilot. I don't think Genie should be used without supervision, meaning it's there, but you should check up on it, and that's with any manager or any good,
Right. You would do that with the human manager.
Exactly. So, making sure that there is no hallucinations, or it is doing exactly what you want it to do. And of course, let's be honest, there is no software without bugs, right? There's always things that break. Sometimes GPUs go out, OpenAI goes out, right? This is just natural evolution of iteration, and it will, though, definitely increase output. That is for sure. And I think the slogan is do more with less, meaning you have to be scrappy, right? As a founder, the biggest lesson I learned is the scrappier you are, the more successful that you are. And so you want to do so much more with less. And so that's what I think generative AI is helping us do.
Well,
And
you know what? Thank you. Yeah, actually, thank you for the time. Imgesu, I can't believe I've been saying Imgesu for the last 3 years. We invested into GenieAI, which used to be DeFi Trends. We think that where you've expanded into is a great opportunity. We think it's super smart. We appreciate the time. And is there any like last little things that you got just to say, like say hello to your mom or dad or something?
Yes, hello to mom and dad both. But if anyone is interested in learning more, I think even if you don't have any data analytics team, or maybe you already have a team, it's always great to upskill yourself and learn how it works and how it can create benefit for your organization or yourself. So reach out to me.
And where could people, you know what, I'll post everything anyway, but where do you, like would you ever do any kind of AMAs, maybe like have a couple of people just kind of join on and do like an AMA?
Sure. If there's any questions, I'd be honored to do a Ask Me Anything session. We can kind of even do a demo. We can show how, use cases of how, our clients already use it. And yeah, I'd love to. And you can reach me at Imgesu at OpenGenie.ai. We're on Product Hunt. We're on G2. We're on the web. We are on LinkedIn, Twitter, everywhere. So you can follow us.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the time. And this is the end of the second episode of Block Changers. I am Enzo Villani, and we'll see you soon. Thanks again.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.